make money, they all want to do this and that. The only way through Israel. Right? Now, a lot of us, if we would look at a place to live, we'd go live somewhere else. Right? We'd go live in some nice little quiet place, in some little place that's out of the way, where no one's really going to, like New Zealand, no one is really going to worry about New Zealand. Right? We are very small on the map. We're not on the way to anywhere. In fact, we're the furthest away from basically everywhere. You cannot get further away than New Zealand. If you get any further, you start coming back around to where you started from. Okay, so New Zealand is the ideal place, right, to be if you want to be out of trouble. If you don't want to be constantly being attacked. If you don't want to be constantly being threatened every day of your life. But God put His people right there, right? And so that's why they were always being attacked. They were always surrounded by, even today, Israel is surrounded by enemies on all sides. Right? All sides, there are people that are trying to fight them and they want their land and all of this sort of stuff. Have you been to Israel? Oh, Pastor Urban has. Right? A lot of desert. A lot of skinny little trees. A few little mountain tops. It's not that great. No, it's not a place that you're going to say, man, look at that place. That's where I want to live, right? You got a sea with no fish in it. You got a river that leads nowhere. You got, yeah, why would you live there? Right? But that's where God put His people. Okay? And so it's still the same today. So Nehemiah is in a land just surrounded by enemies, mocking his attempts to rebuild the wall, calling them feeble, and conspiring and breathing threats of physically murdering them, killing them, doing everything that they can. Right? The historian Josephus records some time, Nehemiah's time in his works, and he says that by night the enemies would creep in and destroy and pillage and wreck everything, and by day there would be just bodies everywhere. And that was happening every single day in Jerusalem. Right? And so this is what Nehemiah is trying to build some security. He wants to build some safety so that people can actually live without being threatened. Because back in those days, if your little city didn't have any walls, right, if you just had a little picket fence around, man, you were toast. Right? There's nothing to protect, and no way you had any safety or security at all. You needed the walls, right? And then it got worse, because not only were they threatening Nehemiah, but they're threatening the people, and the people start to hear these threats from Tobiah and Sanballat, and they begin to get discouraged, and they're like, Nehemiah, what are we going to do? Everybody's against us. This is all, the work is too much, it's too big, there's just too much going on. We need to just give up. We need to just give up. This is not going to work, right? And it's easy for us to become discouraged when things like this are going on in our lives. Okay? What was Nehemiah going to do? He had a choice to make. He could quit, he could go back to his position of comfort and authority and power that he had there in Persia. He was probably a wealthy man. He could have gone back to the king and said to the king, well, it just didn't work, so I'm back here and I'm going to go, I'll just do this now. He could have just walked off and left the people to their own devices. But he didn't. He didn't. That's one of the things I love about Nehemiah. He had a mind to get things done. So how did he overcome discouragement in his life? And how did he lead the people to overcome this overwhelming discouragement that was all around them? Well, this morning I just want to share with you guys just two things, two lessons that we learned from Nehemiah. The first one that we want to look at this morning is we need to learn to recognize discouragement. Learn to recognize the threat looming the ugly face of discouragement. Okay? Because basically, our enemy that we fight against, he is powerful, he is smart, he is crafty, sly, but he's not particularly creative. Okay? He cannot create anything. And he comes at us the same way again and again and again. And if we can recognize the steps that Satan uses to get into our lives, to be forewarned is to be forearmed, as it were, then we can mount a defense and we can stop him coming into our lives all the time. So this morning I just want to share with you guys 4 stepping stones that allow the giant of discouragement access into our lives. If you notice in verse number 10, in Nehemiah verse number 10, This is really where it all comes together. It says, one of the guys named Judah came to Nehemiah and he said, the strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build a wall, Nehemiah. We need to just quit. We need to just give up. Okay? So there's 4 things that come into our lives that Satan uses to bring this giant into our lives. The first one is fatigue. Fatigue. Right. When we start getting tired, when we start getting worn down, it is easy for discouragement to start creeping into our lives, right? The first thing we see in verse 10 is the strength of the laborers was failing. You can underline that in your Bible. Right? The strength of the laborers was failing. And it's understandable. We see in Nehemiah chapter 6 verse 15 that they had rebuilt the walls in just 52 days. Yeah. That's amazing. That's a huge accomplishment. These are big walls and the place was a mess and they rebuilt it in 52 days. That means they were working hard. That means they were working from sun up to sundown, and possibly longer, every single day, all day, every day, working hard. Now, I don't know about you guys, but one of my least favorite activities in the world to do is digging holes and moving stones. Okay? That is hard work. There is not much work out there that is harder than digging holes and moving stones, right? Several years ago when I was working for, I worked for Archgold, most of you guys know that, but for a couple of years I was an installer. And the worst job that we had, the absolute worst job that we had, is we had to put up a huge archgold at Pakuranga College. Okay? And, which sounds easy enough, but normally when we put up an archgold, we dig holes in the ground, we dig holes that are about like that. That round, about like that deep, right? So they're not particularly hard to dig. You just have your little borer and dig a hole down and you tip out the dirt. Right? And it's fairly easy as long as there's nothing down there. It's pretty straightforward. Right, but no, at a school with the Auckland Council, we have to dig a hole that is that wide and that deep. I kid you not. For a post that is that big. Right? So, huge hole, way down. So, okay, that's going to take some work. Okay, but it gets better. Pakuranga College had a whole bunch of concrete bricks all over the floor there. So first of all, we had to go out and move the concrete bricks, right? Hundreds of them. Thousands of bricks. We had to move them all out of the way. And then under that, they had concrete that was like that thick, right? So we had to cut the concrete with some concrete saws, cut a huge hole in it, and then pry it out of the way, and it was all full of rebar and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't easy, okay? And then, after that, we had to get a hole borer. Okay, so one of those 2-person hole borers. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen them. They are not easy, right? They are not easy because they're like, they're going to pull the engine, and they start, there's 2 of you, and then they hit something, and boom, you get thrown right off. It hits a big chunk of rock or something, and starts spinning around all by itself. And that is hard work. That was possibly the hardest I have worked in my life. Definitely in a long time. Right? We hired a trailer to get rid of the stuff that we're pulling out of the ground, right? We hired a trailer for that. The trailer had a weight limit of 700 kilograms. Right? So we were there shoveling the dirt and the stones and the rocks and the concrete onto this trailer. That trailer weighed, when we took it to the tip, 2,500 kilograms. That poor trailer was bent over slightly. Unfortunately, it was just a higher trailer. We took it back to the higher place and it's sagging like this, and the guy's like, what happened? I don't know. But that was hard work. I tell you, it is hard work. Digging holes, moving stones, all day, every day. That will wear you out. That will absolutely wear you out. And this is where the builders are. This is where Nehemiah's team are. They're halfway through building the walls. Right? They're halfway through building the walls. Because they built it in 52 days. And Nehemiah says here in verse 6 that the walls were half built when the opposition came against them. Right? Now, I've often found, I don't know about you, Pastor Irwin, but I've often found that when you're doing a church building project, the hardest part is when you get about halfway in. About halfway in. Because when you start out, it's easy, it's all exciting and it's great, and you're ripping stuff down and clearing stuff out, and it's all fantastic. Everybody loves demo work. Everybody loves just smashing things up and clearing stuff. That's easy, right? But when you get about halfway through, that's when it starts getting tired, right? You start getting sore, and you start getting tired, and that's when it's really hard to find the strength, the energy to keep going, right? And that's when Satan comes at us. If you remember, we talked about a few weeks ago the giant of temptation, right? And how our enemy knows how to tempt us. He knows the right time, he knows the right thing, he knows the right way to come and tempt us with, right? Because it's different for each one of us. It's the same with discouragement. He knows the right time to come and start to discourage us, to start to put opposition against us, to start to make things hard. Right? He knows the right time. Often it's a Saturday night or a Sunday morning. Right? When you're trying to get up and get ready for church and nothing is going right. Your car's got a flat battery, you've got a flat tire, or the kids have eaten all the breakfast and there's nothing to eat, or whatever, Satan knows when to rear his ugly head. Okay? When you're halfway through, it's when you're a prime target for discouragement. When you're getting tired. We need to learn to recognize times in our life when we're getting tired, when we're getting worn out. Right? And we need to realize that is often the time when our enemy is going to come against us. Right? I've often found in my life that the times when I get discouraged the most easily is when I've been trying to do too much for too long. You can do a lot for a short time, but when you're trying to do too much for too long, it starts to wear on you, it starts to grind you down, especially when you're doing something that maybe doesn't get noticed by a lot of people. A lot of things in the background, or a lot of things that go unseen, and a lot of things that are repetitive. I found that can be discouraging when you're working at something and you don't seem to be making any progress. And it's the same thing again and again. And it's like when you have kids. I know there's a few of you guys in here that have kids, right? I see a lot of you guys have kids that are quite small, right? Under school age. Enjoy it. Okay, enjoy it. Yes, that is marvelous. That is the best time to have kids. Okay, because once they'll be up early, man, they'll be up at the crack of dawn, chipper and happy. Hi, mummy, hi, daddy. I'll come to see you. Right, all that sort of stuff. But when they get a bit older and they have to start getting up for school, that's when the whole personality just changes like that. And instead of being, hi, mummy, hi, daddy, it's, get out of bed, gotta go to school, and you got to do it again and again, and you do it on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. It's like, haven't you learned yet? You have to get up for school, right? It's going to sink in eventually, right? You have to do it again and again. And it's like, well, what are you going to do when you have to get a job and you have to get to work? You're not going to be able to tell your boss, I don't feel like coming in today. Your boss is going to say, well, fine, don't come in, ever. And then you're going to have no money. Okay, it's a vicious cycle. But I want to encourage you parents, don't give up. Don't give up. The things that you have are repetitive, that you have to do again and again and again and again and again, that seem to go unrewarded. Often they are the most important things. Often they're the most important things. Okay? That's a second area that Satan comes and tries to drag us down, is frustration. Frustration. I know it may not seem like it, but I can be easily frustrated. Okay? One of my pet peeves is having to repeat myself more than 3 times. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. If I have to say it a 3rd time, better watch out. Because the first time I'll be nice, I'll be happy. The second time I'll be like, what? Weren't you listening? Okay, here it is again. The 3rd time, what? Okay? Repeating myself easily leads to frustration. And it can be the same many times in things that we do in life, like with kids. A lot of raising your kids when they're small and young is repetition. Again and again and again, don't touch that, don't do that, don't go here, don't do that. Right, get out of there. And it's repetition again and again and again. But we cannot give up on it. Right? We cannot give up on it. We have to keep persevering, we have to keep going, even though it is discouraging. Right? And a lot of times in church it can be like that too. A lot of times it can be discouraging. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that people don't realize. Right? We show up and the chairs are magically put out. Right? And the sound gear is magically up. And the musician team is magically doing their things. Right? And we have no idea how any of that happens. And we don't see the guys that come in every week. They come in early in the rain and in the cold and in the summer and the heat. They come in early and they set things up, and afterwards they clean things away. And nobody sees it. And it's easy when you're in this sort of job to be discouraged. I was a sound guy for many years, and the only time the poor sound guy ever gets noticed is when something goes wrong. And then every head turns. What are you doing? Right? Why is that microphone squealing away? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? The only time you ever get noticed, there's no good job, no pats on the back when everything goes well. Right? And it can be easy to become frustrated. It can be easy to become discouraged. Nobody's noticing the things that I'm doing. Nobody's noticing the work that I'm putting in. Right? I want to encourage you guys, if you start feeling like that, remember that we have a Heavenly Father that sees the things that we do. He sees the small, He sees the hard, He sees the work that goes in behind the scenes. And He will reward. Right? So we don't do these things for praise. We don't do these things for recognition. We do these things because they need to be done. So that God's people can come and worship and listen to the message and sing the songs. That's why we do it.
Right.
Because it needs to be done. I want to remind you guys what Paul says in Galatians chapter 6, verse number 9. Right, Paul says, let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap. We shall reap if we do not lose heart. Okay? It's easy to lose heart. It's easy to become discouraged when we're being frustrated, when we feel like we're banging our head against the wall and we're not getting any further. Why am I not growing? Why am I not doing this? Why am I falling for this again and again and again? It's easy for Satan to come along and put those seeds of discouragement in our hearts. We need to encourage ourselves that even if no one else sees, God sees. And we need to strengthen ourselves and keep persevering through those times. Right? That's the first step. The third step, stepping stone that Satan uses to get into our lives, is failure. As Brother Erwin preached a great message on last week, the giant of failure. Okay? There's always potential for failure. We live in a fallen world. We live in a world that is set against us, that has obstacles, that does not want the church, the people of God, to succeed. And they will do anything they can. They don't even realize what they're doing. They don't realize the hypocrisy of what they're doing. But they will do it just to try and tear us down. Right? I mean, a current example is old Israel Folau in the Australian rugby. They got rid of their best player months before the World Cup because of a tweet that he put up about God's word. Right? Now, I know there are two sides to the story. Do I agree with everything that he did? Possibly not. But I can salute him for taking a stand and standing by God's word. And then I see the opposition that came against him out of nowhere, out of pure insanity. Right? And now it might wreck all of Rugby Australia. Right? Because we live in a world that is opposed to God's principles, that is opposed to God's people trying to do something and spread the gospel. Right? And they will do everything they can to make us trip up. And they will do everything they can to let us know when we've tripped up as well. So we live in a world where we're surrounded by failure, but just because we fail at something does not make us a failure. Right? Does not make us a failure. It is a giant that we will all face at points in our lives. All the greatest people that you read about in the Bible, all the greatest people that you read about throughout history, dealt with failure. As Pastor Owen referenced, how many times did Thomas Edison fail building the light bulb before he got it right? One that's always close to my heart, I read somewhere that Colonel Sanders, when he was trying to launch his chicken, went to 84 different restaurants. 84 restaurants that said, no, we don't want your chicken. before he finally found one. And now we have KFC. Okay, so never give up. Okay, so things like this are going to happen in our lives. Failure, frustration, fatigue. We're going to get worn down. We're going to get tired. We're going to get frustrated. What we need to do is we need to recognize those things as they happen in our lives. And we need to realize, oh, I'm getting tired here. I'm starting to get worn out. I'm getting a bit snappy at my kids or with my wife or at my workmates or whatever. And I need to just take some time here. Maybe step back a little bit. I need to withdraw. I need to just focus, you know. The fourth way that Satan tries to get into our lives, and this is often the last card that he plays, when everything else has failed, he comes along with the big hammer, as it were, and that is fear. Intimidation. If everything else fails, he will try intimidation to overcome God's people. It says in verse number 7 here, it says that now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites, that's everybody, heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored and the gaps were beginning to be closed, that they became very angry, and all of them conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. And verse number 11 it says, they got reports, the adversaries were saying they will neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and we kill them. The historian Josephus, as I said, wrote about this time. He records the story of Nehemiah and his works, and he says, and that they also slew, talking about what was going on in Jerusalem at the time, he says, they also slew many of the Jews and sought how they might destroy Nehemiah himself by hiring some foreigners to kill him. And they also put the Jews in fear and disturbed them and spread abroad rumors as if many nations were ready to make an expedition against them and ready to make war against them, by which means they were harassed and they had almost left off with the building. His enemies were doing everything they could. His enemies outnumbered him. They were more powerful. They had better weapons. Then they was basically outmatched and outnumbered. Right? Completely surrounded. And the enemies are telling them, we're going to sneak in. You're not even going to see us coming. We're going to sneak in and we're going to kill you from all sides. Wow. Wow. A lot of us don't live. I'm so glad in New Zealand we don't face that threat of persecution like that today. But there are many Christians around the world, and many nations who do. Who take their lives into their hands when they meet for church. And they meet in secret and they hide. But they still do. And I think that's amazing. Because I often wonder, how would our churches feel in New Zealand here if we faced that kind of threat of persecution? If we knew that by meeting together on a Sunday morning, someone could bust down the door and walk in here with a machine gun and start shooting us, would we still meet? Would we still take a stand for the Lord? Sometimes I ponder that in my heart. I like to think we would, but sometimes those situations you don't know until you're in that situation. And I believe that God gives strength to people in those situations as well. I have heard stories of in the States, governments going into schools and looking for the Christians. Are you a Christian? And they're having the courage to say, yes, I am. I think God gives them strength and grace in those times. But I also pray we never find out. The enemies were circling them. The enemies outnumbered them, overwhelmed them, did everything they could to stop them. It would have been easy for Nehemiah to throw in the towel. It would have been easy for him to say, you know what, God has forsaken us. He has left us. There's just no way we can finish this. Right? It would have been easy for him just to conform, just to give in and say, you know what, I'm giving up, I'm going back. But fortunately, Nehemiah is a strange man. Nehemiah knew that he had been given this task by God. He knew that his God was with him, because God had provided everything that he needs, right from the king all the way through. And the word quit is not in Nehemiah's vocabulary. He never gave up. The question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we respond when we're tired, when we're frustrated, when everything looking like it's going to fail? and we're fearful, how do we respond? Right? Let's look at that. How did Nehemiah respond? The second thing I want to share with you guys this morning, we need to learn to respond to discouragement two ways, directly and definitively. Directly and definitively. Discouragement is not something that you can sit back and wait and see what happens kind of response to. It's not something you can just sit on the sidelines. Right? There's no sitting on the fence. Okay? You either take action or you overcome. There's no middle ground. Right? So we need to learn to just respond like Nehemiah did. Nehemiah didn't back down in spite of all the opposition that was against him. Instead, he made a plan to keep his focus and the focus of the people where it needed to be. Right? Because often we get distracted by everything else that's going on around us. And Nehemiah had a plan. He said, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to just look right here, just like the coach did in that example where he put the blindfold on him so he could not see, and just listen to my voice. I'll tell you when to quit. Right? So the 5 keys that we need to learn in our lives to respond to discouragement. The first one is we need to cry out to God. First thing Nehemiah did when all of these things came upon him, first thing he did when he heard about the condition of Jerusalem, he fell on his knees and he cried out to the Lord. In verse number 4 and verse number 9 says, nevertheless we made our prayer to our God. The first thing they did was respond in prayer. How often, though, do we find ourselves saying, well, nothing else has worked, brother, might as well pray about it. How often do we fall into the trap of leaving prayer to be a last resort instead of a first response? Right? It should be the first thing that we do when opposition comes against us, but often the first thing we try to do is we try to deal with it in our own strength. We try to push through in our own way. We try to overcome it. Right? In our own body, in our own strength, right? And then if that doesn't work, then maybe we'll pray about it. Okay? Then maybe we'll turn to the Lord. But no, you write that down. Prayer should be our first response, not our last resort. The first place to begin when discouragement comes is in prayer. Now you need to be careful how you pray as well. Because I want you to notice how Nehemiah prays. It would be easy for us to pray in hard times and we just pray for God to remove the situation, remove everything, remove the people that are against us, and remove the hard times, Lord, and just let everything be calm and peaceful. Right? But it may be that God is trying to teach us something in these times as well. And so we need to be careful that we don't remove the lesson that God is trying to teach us as well. Right? Because He works everything together for our good. Even the hard times God can use to teach us and to grow us. So maybe we should begin, when we pray, we should begin by asking God to give us the strength that we need to get through the situation that He has allowed in front of us. Because we need to remember that our God is in control and He allows only so much to come against us. Right? We need to remember that. Our enemy is not all powerful. Our enemy can do no more than God allows him to do. Right? The second place that we need to go when we're discouraged is we need to go to the Word. We need to turn to the Word. Again, a first response, not a last resort. Okay? Not everything else has failed. I might as well see what God has to say about the thing. Right? First response should be to turn to the Lord, like Brother Dowd talked about this morning. When you're discouraged, turn to the Word. Ecclesiastes is a good one. Right? Ecclesiastes is a good one. But Nehemiah encouraged himself by remembering everything that God had done for his fathers beforehand. Right? Read Nehemiah chapter 9. It's a fantastic passage. One of my favorite. But often when I'm feeling discouraged, I like to turn to the Psalms. I like to read through the Psalms, and I encourage you guys. A lot of preachers have a habit of reading through Psalms every day, right? Every day, and just being encouraged. Because one of the things I like about the Psalms is they're real. Right. They're real. It's not like I love reading the Psalms of David, where he cried out to God at some of the darkest points in his life, where he was going through tremendous trials. But he doesn't make light of it. He doesn't try to pretend like everything is okay and all that sort of stuff. He just lays everything out before God. We don't have time to go through many of them this morning. I just want to share with you guys. Psalm 27 is one of my favorites. Verses 1 to 3. It says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Of whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?
Yeah.
When the wicked come against me to eat up my flesh, and my enemies and my foes, they stumbled and fell. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war may